Hi and welcome back to video number 4 of a real-time chat app series with NestJS and Angular. And in this video we are focusing on Angular, where we will build a registration form so that we can register new users, and we do this with Angular reactive forms. We will add a private and public module. We will add routing and also lazy loading for this, so very basics here. Then we create the reactive registration form that we use to register a new user and to validate all the inputs from the user, so the username, the email, the password confirmation, and so on. And then we will send a request to our API, so a post request to create the new user. And if this is handled correctly, we will display like a little snack, so like a little hint or information that everything worked. Or if we get like a failure response, then we also display this. Here our structure for video number 4 is as always. First we have a look at our video outcome, then we read our user story, and then we implement the story, close it, and commit all the changes. Let's have a quick overview what we are doing in this video here. So you can see before we are having like 4 users in our database with our get request, total items 4. Then we can go here into our front end, and here we have our login route, and we also have a register route that we can go here. You can always go forward and back, and then we can register, and we need to specify him a valid email. Otherwise, he's saying you have to specify a valid email. So we can go with Thomas at Thomas, let's say 11.com. The username should always be unique, so it's 11. Password should always be a password, and we have to add the same password confirmation, so the same password that we provided here. So if I give him something wrong, then he says password are not matching, and I have to give him the right one, and then also the hint goes away and the register button gets activated, and then we get like the message that our user was successfully created, and we get redirected to login, which will be implemented then in the next videos. And now we can make another get request to all our users here, and now you see we have total items 5, so the user got. Hi and welcome back to the next video. This is video number 4, where we handle Angular user registration with reactive forms. So we can have a look at our story here. So we open the preview, and the story is, as a user, I want to be able to register myself for an account through the Angular web app. My input data should be validated, and on click on register, I shall be redirected to the login page if my account was created successfully. So here we have some stuff up that we want to do. So we want to set up like a public module where I have like a login page on the register page, where I can enter my email, my username, my password, and if my account gets created successfully in our NestJS API, then I get redirected to the login page. So here we have some acceptance criteria. We want to have like a public module, a private module, so that is then protected or only accessible if you are logged in. Then we want to implement lazy loading for both modules, so that nothing that they are not loaded initially on startup. We want to set up components dashboard for our private module, register and login for our public module. We want to set up a basic authentication guard for private module, but not with the real load logic that we add in the next videos, because right now we just handle the registration, but just that everything seems fine. Then we want to set up routing for our public module, so for the register route, for the login route, and so on. We also want to create a registration form with Angular reactive forms and have a short introduction to this. We want to display hints or errors in our form. So if I don't type in a valid email, we want to have like a hint that shows us that this is not valid. We need a user service that is there to create the user, so that we can make the request from our component to the service, then to our backend. Of course, we want to display a snack bar on success or failure. This is like a toast or something, so like a little message that says here user was created, so that the user in Angular gets a feedback. And the last one is a little bit off topic, but in the last videos I missed unique on the username, because the username should always be unique, because later we need this for the chat application. So we can then start directly. So let's first have maybe a quick look to our API here in Postman. So as you remember, we have like here a request to add a new user. We can log in when we get a JWT token back, token type, and expires in. If we get this access token here, we can make a GET request against all users. At the moment we are having here 2. And if I remove this token, then I'm unauthorized, so I'm not getting anything from the API. So now the first thing that we want to do, or that is very easily, we can do on our user entity in the backend, and we can also add here a unique true to the username, because usernames should not be existing 2 times. And now we can fully focus on our Angular stuff. So you can see here, this was our test service for testing our connection to our backend. And now we can just open a new terminal and can use or make use of the Angular CLI. So first we have to cd into our front-end folder, and now we can create some stuff. So first we want to create like a module, so we can say ng generate m for module, and we can call this private, so this should be only later accessible in the next videos when we are logged in and have a valid JWT. And when we add this routing here, then we will also create a module and a routing module for our private module. So we don't have to do this later. So you can see here now we have created our private module and also our private routing module. So here we can then add the routes for this module later, and this is directly imported into the module itself. And the other module that we want to generate is our public module, where we have like our registration and login components. And actually I was here, missing here the routing, so let's just delete it and do it again so we don't have to do it from hand. And now you see we have also our public module with the routing module, and both are already imported or not. Yeah, no, we want to do this later via lazy loading, so we don't need this here. And then we can create some components. So first we can say we want to generate a component to our private module, and we can say this should be our dashboard component. And then we have it here, and I like to do this in a new folder that I name components. And then I just move the dashboard component, so we have later then here another folder for services and so on. And then we also want to do this with in our public module. So we create a component in our path here public, and then we name this simply login component. And we make another one, so you see it here, that we call register. So when we have also a register component, and here we can also make a new folder that we name components. And then we move both to this folder. And then we can see the paths here are actually wrong. We just have to add here components. And also for the register component. And the same goes probably for the private module. And then everything should be fine again. So maybe first we can try to add some lazy loading here, so we can have a look here if everything is looking fine. And then for a lazy loading, we can simply go into our app routing module and add some routes. So here the first one would be our path is private. So this would be then go to, for example, localhost 4200/private, and then it would load the other paths from the private module. Then we can say we want to load children. So this is used for private lazy loading. And then we simply add here the path to our private module that we want to lazy load. So we go to private module, make.then, and then we simply can access the private module. And we can do the same for our public module. So we make load children, we give the import the path to our public module. And then we can add like a redirect. So if we have no path here matching, then we can say we want to redirect to, for example, to public, and the path match should be full. So then we need, of course, to add some routes to our other modules, but first we can probably add something here to our private module. Let's go there. So here we can simply say we have our dashboard route, so we can say dashboard, and our component is our dashboard component. And we can also make here a redirect. Path. And then we can make the same for our public module. So then we have here our path login. We have our component login component, and we have our path register with our component register component. And we can also make a redirect here, so if nothing matches. And we say path match full. So then we can format it a bit, and save it. Let's close everything else here. And then in our app routing module, we have to add here, because right now if we go to our localhost 4200, you still see this, no matter what route we are, because we have to add here the router outlet, so that Angular on the English layout. So we have to add the router outlet so that Angular knows where to render the components. So now you can see we are on login, and it says login works as it is saying here in our login component. Then we can, for example, also check for register. You see register works, and we could go to private/dashboard, and then we see dashboard works. So the first thing that we don't want to do, or that we don't want to have, we don't want to access our private route directly without having like a JWT. So what we need, or that we can implement, is like an authentication guard. So we can say ng generate guard, and then we can name this guard auth. Very simple. And we want to implement can activate. And now you see we have here our authentication guard. We can make a new folder. I can name it guards. And we can move this here. And at the moment this is always returning true. So the auth guard we can activate is always where to return a Boolean value. So if you're able to access or not, or an URL tree, whatever you want. So for example, here we can say we also want to have access to our Angular router. And we want at the moment to always return false so that we can never access our private module, because we have to implement this later when we have the login stuff. We can just here, and then this router should fire. And we can maybe make here a little comment to say to do implement real guard when login component is finished. So this is something for the next videos, I think. So then we also have to make use of this guard. So we can say here, so we say can activate, and then we use our authentication guard. So we auth guard here, and then we should not be able to access this route at the moment. So when we now try to go to private dashboard, you see we get redirected to login. Or we can also go to private, this would also redirect. But if we go to register, this works fine. If we go to anything, then it always redirects us to public login. So I could type in here, I think, anything, and this goes to public login. So now we have to do, or we can do some stuff. First, we maybe want to add like an interface for our user. So we can make here like a new folder, model, and then we add here our user.interface.ts. And then we can simply export our interface. And then we have like our email from type string. We have our username, string, and also our password, and always optional from type string. And we can save it, then we can use it everywhere where we need it. So maybe I would also add later like shared modules or something, but not right now. So now we could, for example, add Angular material to our application, because we will need this for our views, so for our HTML files and everything. So we can simply Google for this, Angular material. So this is like a library for Angular or UI component library that we can use very easily. So we just have to add this command here. And I think then we have to rebuild our container. So we can install everything. This can take a while, and we can stop the container or our Docker stuff in the meantime. So now everything should be installed, and we can Docker compose build and then Docker compose up and see if everything works. And for example, then we can go into our application module, and we can then use the met snack bar module. So we can just Google for met snack bar. So you can see here, for example, the met snack bar is there to display here like a little notification for the user that something happened, so that you clicked on something or so. So we can simply import this here, and we can import this to our application module. Then we need to add it to our imports. So then we can say our met snack bar module. And this probably takes some time because we are obviously using it here. Yeah, so now it works. So then we can also use this everywhere where we need it. So now we can go to our public module where we now want to do all our stuff for our registration component. So first we have to import like all the stuff that we need from Angular material. So we can say here we need our met card module. And so we can just go here for components, met card module, and see where we have to import it from. So this here is all the Angular stuff, so met card module. Then we have like, of course, the reactive forms module from Angular that we need. We need our form field module so that we can make some pretty nice form fields. Just Google it and just see where we have to import it from. Then we have the met input module to style the inputs. And we have the met button module. Ah, it knows it. Why not the rest? So then just let's add this here. And then this should go away here. And now we can make use of like the Angular material card, reactive forms, and so on. And maybe the first thing that we can try is we can make here like a button that links us to our registration page. And we can just say go to register page. And we can say this should be a material button. Now first we can add a router link so that we can, with this, very easily make X or route the user on click to another route. So here we could say we want to go one up, and then we want to go to /register. And then if everything here is finished, we can see if it works. So I think this needs quite some time because of now the Angular material stuff. And then we can later see when this starts if everything works. Then in our registration component, we have to do all the stuff. So while this here is loading, we can have a quick look at Angular material or Angular reactive forms. So we can see here reactive forms are forms where we write logic, validations, and controls in our components class. Unlike with template-driven forms where we do everything in the template. So the reactive form is flexible and can be used to handle any complex form scenarios. We write more component code and less HTML, which makes unit testing easier. So we can enable it very easily by importing reactive forms module from Angular forms. So just add this here to our imports, like we already did. And then we have access, for example, to form control and form group. So the form control can power an individual form control, for example, our email or our password and so on. It can track the value of this and also the validation status. So we can always access, like if the user has touched it, so clicked on it, for example, or made an input or not, and so on. If the value changes, everything here. We can also add some validators to it. And you can see it here with form group. We can group form control instances and keep track always of the complete group. So we have here, for example, a new group. This has then first name and password with new form controls and like the initial value of empty or null. And then in your template, we can just use form. We bind it to our form group my group that we created here. And then we have like an input for form control name first name that goes to this first name here. So this controls it, and a password for this here. You can also use nested form groups and so on. But we actually don't even need this. Then in your form, you can specify here in ng-submit, so which function should be handled. If you click the button, and so if you have a button inside this and you can just name it submit, then this here get executed and you can just get the complete form value in your component. You can also add some basic validation. So you have here from Angular validators, for example, required, so that you cannot, that the form is always invalid if there is no value for first name. And the same goes here for password. You can also add like min length or max length and so on. So there are some built-in validators, and you can also make your own. You can also make easy getters for the form controls of one component and have easy access to it. And here I think you can also disable the submit button if, for example, the form is invalid and so on. So I think this is like a short introduction. Now we can see if everything here is started. So now we can go to our front end and we see we have here our login. So we can click to go to register page. And then you see we switch the routes. And now we can try to add here like our Angular material button and see if we added everything correctly to our module so that Angular material works. And we can simply then say here we have our mat button and reload. Now you see we have here our Angular material button. So I think everything should be set up correctly. And now we can go completely to our registration form, our registration component. So the first thing that we want to add here probably is our form. So we have a form that is from type form group from Angular. And then we want to have like here our new form group. And then we have some values, and the values should be our email. So everything that our user has. So basically we are just using the stuff here where we create a user, email, username, password to create a user. So we want to have email, which is a new form control. And the form state at the beginning is null. And here we can add some validators from Angular. And for example, you see here we have required, pattern, email, and so on. So here you can pass in a regex function and so on. And so first we can just say required, and we can also check for if it is an email. Then we have our username. This also is a new form control, also null, and we can also say this is required. Then we have our password, which is also a new form control with the value null. And this should also always be there, so always required. So then we have our basic form that we now can start. So I think the int we can first remove because we don't need it. So we can just remove this from our component. And then we can make here, for example, some get. So here we can say we want to get email and we want to return a form control. So here we say return this.form.get. We get the email and then we can say as form control. And then we can make the same stuff with username and password, and then we have always access to the values very easily. So we say return this.form and we get, and we want to get here the username. and as a form control. And the same goes for password. So here we want to return this.form.get password as form control. Can format it, and now we have like the basic stuff that we need here. And we can switch to our HTML. So at the moment we can just make here like a div. And we can make a new class that we call container. And then we can add this to our CSS. And we say we have our container class. And here we can give him, we want to display flex. We want to center our content, so we can just use justify content center. We can make a margin all around the stuff for 100 pixels. And we can say our minimum width, so if we later change the width in the browser, should be, for example, 350 pixels. And then in this div, we could make another div. And here we can have all our stuff. And then we can go with a div where we make also a little link to our login page, so that you can always go and switch between the pages. And here we can, to make it easier looking, just make a link. And we can also use a router link here. And then we can go one up with 2 dots, and then we go to login. And then we can just name this go to login. And our class, I think, let's see how it is looking. So now we have it here. So I can go to login, I can go to register and so on, and switch either in both directions. So beneath this, we want to have like another div where we now handle all the stuff for our form. So to make it nicer looking, we can use Angular Material Card. And we can give the card here a met card title. And this could be like register. And then our form or our card should not always just have a title, but it should also have a met card content. So you can always go to Angular Material Cards and read yourself further in. But these are how they are looking, or how they can look with images. You have here all the elements, so title, subtitle, content, images, actions, footer, and so on, that you can use. So here we are in our content. And then here we want to use our form. You see here, at the moment it's very small. So first we can probably say here in our container, then we have our login class, and we can just say margin bottom, let's say 20 pixels, so that it's not clutching directly to our Angular Material Card. And then we have our met card and our met card content. And then we have maybe our form. We can say we want to display flex because we don't want to have our form entries, so the email, the password, all on one line, but we want to have it beneath each other. So we go with flex direction as a column. And we can justify content also for center. And then we can save this. Now we have here like our space between the login and the register. And now we have to add some stuff. And then we can also make that we have like a minimum width of 300 pixels also on. So yeah, this should be very easily. So first we have to add to our form a real form. So we add like a form group. And this is of course our form from our component. So here our form. And we can add an ng submit. So what happens if we hit the button that we add here? So then we want to call our register. That's not here at the moment, but we can just create it. And then this should look fine for the moment. And then we have to add our form fields that we need to display, like the email field, the password field, the username field, and so on. So this should be, of course, an input. Then we can specify the text, the type. So here we can say text. If we are going for email, or maybe do we have? Yeah, we even have email. We can later for password, for example, specify the type as password. Then you will not see your characters when you're typing, and this makes it more secure. Then we specify this as material input so that we have access to all the stuff. We can give him a placeholder, and we can simply name this username, and then we have to say which form control name is it. And this here is the email, and then this placeholder here is the email. And we can copy and paste this here for the username. And we can copy and paste this for our password. And then we can have a look at it. So you now see we have here like an email, and this is wrong because it's not validating as email. And so now you see it's fine. We need to specify username and a password. And now we need a submit button. So this needs to be inside our form so that it gets recognized. We can give our class like a button class. And then we have our button where we say register. And this should also be an Angular material button. We can specify the type. This is a submit button. And what we can also do, this button should be disabled if our form is not valid. So we can always check if our form is valid, and as long as it has any errors, so that one of these validators is not fulfilled, then it has errors and this should be disabled. So we can see here at the moment it is disabled. If I type in like an email, the username and the password, then we could click it. At the moment nothing happens, but this is how it should work. Then at the moment our button is here direct displayed on the left side. So maybe we want to let it displayed on the right side, because we always click or look from left to right. So we can say just display flex, and then we want to show it at the end. So we say we want to justify the content at the end, and here we have our button class on the div, so the child gets dragged to the right. Then we could, for example, add some stuff to our form fields. So I think we can also move this here into our form. And then we can go against our mat form field. And we can say these should have a width of 100% and a min width of 300 pixels. And then also if we make this smaller, you see it's not going beneath this point here. So it always looks quite good. So now we can have a little think about everything. And one thing that we need, I think, is like on registration page, you should never, or we should check if the password that the user provided is correct. So he should type the password 2 times. So that we can make sure that he is not mistyping. So then we have like a password confirm, and we can also say validators.required, and then we can add this to our form that he also has to fill out the password confirmation. So this is also from type password. And then he should confirm the password, and this is named password confirm. So like we named it here. Then we need to get it. And then we say return this.form.get as form control. So we have access to everything. And now we need to check if the password and the password confirm matches. So for this, Angular is not having any validators that we can use, so we have to make our own. And for this, we can simply in our public module make another folder. We can call it, for example, _helpers. And then we can, well, let's say we can name it our own or custom validators. So we can make a new file, custom validators.ts, and then we can export a class, custom validators, and we can make it static. And we can check for passwords matching. And here we can make use of abstract control so that we can here get the values from our Angular material, from our form. And we want to return either validation errors or null. And then we want to get our password. And this is with our abstract control. We get our password property. And then we want to have the value. And the same goes for the password confirm. Here we want to get the control for password confirm and also access the value. And then we want to check if they are the same. So we can say if password and password confirm are same, and password is not null, and password confirm also not null, then we want to return null. Else we want to add like an error, and we want to return the error object, and we say passwords not matching true. And this basically is the validation errors. If our password and password confirm are the same, then we return null, so we don't add like an error where we use this validator later. But if they are not matching, then we add to our form for the errors, the error passwords matching, not matching true, and then we can handle with this. So here in our register component, then we can add here like another abstract control options to our complete form. So this is not for our controls, but for our complete form. And here we have our validators. And then we can import our custom validators .passwords matching. And then this should check if they are matching and add an error. If not, or let everything as it is with null. Here, so now we can also add here like some hints or errors. And this goes very easily, so we can use here a material error. So we can say, for example, here in our met form field, we say met error. And then we can say we just want to display this if our email dot touched. So if the user clicked into it, for example, and the email has an error, and this could be our error required. So this is the required. This would be here to true if the validator required is not fulfilled, so if this is not having a value. And then we can, for example, say email is required. And we can make the same for has error email. And we can say email must be valid. And then we can do this stuff also for the username and say username is required. And this here is our username. So this is like our get here where we get the username value from our form. And we do the same with password. And we do the same with password confirmation. So password confirmation is required. Then we can have a quick look at it if everything seems fine. So we have here email. Now you see before I'm not clicking into it, nothing is displayed. But if I'm having here then an error, so not providing an email or so on, then it gets the error. If I have a valid email, this seems fine. Then I have a username. I can check for password. So let's type in AAA. And if I type in here something different, then we have to change this here. Yeah, because you remember we are not having our error for the password confirm, but we added this error to the whole form. So we have to say if password confirm is touched and form has error, and then we not go to required, but against the passwords not matching. So that is the error that we added here. So if this exists or is true, then we say password confirmation. We can also say passwords not matching. So let's test this, AAA. No, not working. Okay, so let's have a deeper look again. So we have our password confirm. And we have here the custom validators passwords matching. So let's check if this is here also right. Password dot value. And now let's see, do we have any errors here? No. So now nothing is working anymore. Let's see if we get any errors here. Still not this error. Why not? Okay, so let's try again. So passwords matching, control, abstract control, validation errors or null. We get our password. We get our password confirm. If these are matching and our password is not null and the password confirm is also not null, then we return null. If not, we add like an error. So let's just see if we even run into it. So here we have B, and now we have A. Okay, so I think my stuff here is passwords not matching. So password confirm. As form control. And form has error. And if I type in the same password, then we go into A, so this should be fine. So if our form has the error, passwords not matching, So let's try it again. Let's see if this works. No, even not displaying, then there must be another error. So let's just remove this here. And let's see. Okay. The steer is not working. So ng if password confirm dot touched end form dot has error, and this is our password confirm. So let's first finish the form and then we can check with this later. So another thing that we can do if we want to, for example, we can display a met hint. So a little hint for the user. So we say met hint. We can make it small. And then we can say, please fill out all needed information. And we also just want to display this if our form is not valid. So our form not valid. So not valid. So we negate it, I think, in English. And maybe here I miswrote ngif or misspelled. So let's see, maybe we can find something here. Angular form has error. So this is the name. Whatever. So when we now try, we can just have a quick look in our API. So if we make a GET request against our users, we need our token. So we log in, we get our token. We add this to our request to get all our users. We send the request and we get 2 users. And then we need to add here like a user service so that we can make the request against our backend with the values from our form. So I think this here should be fine. So I think it looks quite nice when we fill out all the information. Then this hint here also goes away. If we have an error, then it shows it to us. Now it also says this is invalid, but it's not displaying. Yeah, maybe we find it out later. Shouldn't be too important right now. I think I'm just missing something very obviously, probably. So now we can go and try to implement our user service. So for this we can also go to our CLI and we can say ng generate service, and then we go to our public and we say user. And then we have here our user service. So where is it? Source app public user service here. So we can make a new folder. Let's name it services and just not to components but to services. Move everything. And then we can make, for example, another folder where we just say it's user service. One second. and just move it there. So then we have our user service here, and we can very easily make a request against our backend. So we just need the Angular HTTP client. And we can also import our snack bar that we imported in the app module at the beginning. Net snack bar. And then we can make a create function. Here we want to get a user. So this is what we want to get from our form, from our register form. And then we want to return an observable, also from type user, and do some stuff. So we basically want to make a HTTP request, a post request against our backend, where we get a user interface back. And we want to make this against /API/users. And we want to add our user to the body. So basically the same as here. So we make a post request with email, username, password in our body against API users. And as you remember, with here our API users, and we have already set up in our app a proxy conf. So everything that goes against API gets redirected to API. So to our, this here is our Docker Compose service API. So we have access to this network then, and then it sends everything to there. And then we need our /API and /users to make the request against the appropriate part. Then we can pipe it, and here we can make a tab. We have to import it. So I think this should be imported from NestJS operators. And then we get here like a created user. And then we can say, here we want to use our snack bar. We want to display a snack. And then we can give him a message. So we can make these with backticks very easily and say user. And then we take here the created user.username, for example, and say it was created, or he was created successfully. Then we can add like a button. We can say this should be closed, and we can also provide some more options to it. So for example, we can say duration should be, I think, 2 seconds at 2000 milliseconds. We can say the horizontal position should be right, and the vertical position should be top. And then after the tab, we can make a catch error, also from AXJS. We can catch the error, and if we get an error, we can, or at the end, we want to throw the error. But before, we also want to display like a snack bar that something went wrong. So we can say this.snackbar.open and say user could not be created. And we can also give a reason. And here we can also use the backticks and can just use the error object that we get from our backend. So we can display it here, and we can say e.error.message. So we just display the message. We also want to name our button close, and we can give here a duration for error maybe a bit longer, let's say 5 seconds. And we can copy the horizontal and vertical position, and then we can save it. And so now we can access this from our component, this service, and our create function here. And then this automatically, if everything goes right, displays our snack here, and if something goes wrong here. So we can now import the service or use it in our registration component. So here we have private user service, and we can also import the Angular router so that we can reroute to login if everything was successful. So in register, we first probably want to check if the form is having any error. So we can say if this.form.valid. Then we want to execute, otherwise not. So then we want to get our user service.create. And then normally you could also say here this.form.get raw value, but we are having here like the password confirm that we cannot use here. So we make an object, we have our email, and this is our this.email.value. We have our password, this.password.value. So here our password.value access. And then we have at last the username, the this.username.value. And so since this is observable, we have to subscribe to it so that it's getting like hot and return something. And before we can also pipe, and we can make another tab. And here we can simply say this.router.navigate. And we can go to up and then go to /login. Can we import it? Yes. So then if everything here works correctly, when we hit our submit button here in our form and the form is valid, then we hit the register, and this should then call our service, and the service should call our backend and create a new user. So if we now make a request to all our users here, my mistake, to this request here, we have our 2 users. And now we can go to our front end and we can say Thomas at Thomas, I think 5 I didn't use, so Thomas 5 is the username, password is password. And then we can hit register. So you see, if I remove this, then the form is invalid. Oops, my mistake. But if I say password, then we can register. And now see user Thomas5 created successfully. We can go to the network and see we made a post request that got back 201, so created. And you can see here the answer was ID, username, and email. And so if I now make a get request here, we get 3 users back. So this seems to work good. And if I now, for example, make another request with an email that is already existing or a username that is already there, so Thomas5 I think is already there, then yeah, we get an error, internal server error at the moment because already done, and this can be handled later. So you see here duplicate key value violated unique constraint, so because this should be always unique. So I just moved it now to here, and here it is working. So if I type in here AAA and here B or whatever, and if I then have the correct password, everything works fine. So I can now, for example, register another user. Let's say thomas10.com, and username is thomas10. I can register. I get redirected to login page. I get my snack bar, and I can verify here that we now have another user in the database. So this should be all for this video here. So now we can just make another commit. And commit all our changes. So we can say git add -upper A. We can commit the changes here, and we say video 4, add public and private modules to Angular, and finish and add registration form with Angular material so that the user can register and send the request with the service. And we can say simple push this. And of course, at the end, we always have to check our story if we implemented everything that we needed. So let's go through it. So we now have a public module. We do also have a private module. We implemented lazy loading for both modules. We have set up our components dashboard for our private module to just then log in for the public module. We have our basic authentication guard that we have to refactor when we have the login functions or login components finished, so that we actually have our JWT from our backend. We have routing for the public module, so the basic stuff that we now need. We have a registration form of Angular reactive forms, and of course with Angular material. We are displaying hints and errors in our form. We have a user service that we need or that we use to create a user. We display a snack bar on success or on failure, and we added unique to our username in NestJS. So we have to commit these changes also. So this is then also video 4, and we name this update user story and push this.